Record this computer. All right, what's up, guys? So I'm here with Dave Haskins. We'll tag his Instagram or YouTube, wherever this is released below. So we want to make a video today. We're on the moon signs. We were just talking a little bit, and we were also interested in talking about how. So first, we want to go into each moon sign, but also talk about the romantic implications, because it's so important to understand your moon sign as it relates to romance, friendships of any sort, right? Me and Dave are both Sag moons, and we get along great. So yeah, moon is it's super important, huh, Dave?
Yeah, it's big. It's big. Like we were kind of talking about before, Jesse. I wish more people that had a limited knowledge of astrology at least knew their moon sign, because I think it can really start to dominate can dominate your chart, especially when you're going through different emotions or situations. It's huge. It's like the part of your chart where there's so many needs that are impacted by the moon. And so, a lot of people know their sun sign, which, hey, that's great. That's even a better start than a lot of people too. And if you know those qualities, but the moon is like what I tell people in my readings is what feeds you. And
yes.
if we're not fed food for a while, we get kind of cranky and we get, pretty upset. And that's just kind of, the moon is in that same way. It's so huge, making sure our needs are met.
Yeah, it's massive. Exactly. It's like, and especially when you're, in a close friendship, a business partnership, a relationship, whether you're living with the person or not, this issue gets extremely deep. I mean, the moon, like if you think of the yin yang, right? The yang is the sun. That's, everyone knows their sun sign, regardless of what your knowledge of astrology is. Listening to this, you know your sun sign, you know what your birthday is, I hope. Some people don't, but yeah, the moon, it's a little bit more difficult to know. And I think that's why it's not looked at as it should be, which is really like 50-50, with the sun and moon sign are just as important as each other, right? It's
Absolutely.
like the dark and the light. So the moon,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the moon, in your birth chart by understanding what sign the moon was in at the day you were born. You can calculate your birth chart. So it's really important. And understanding your sun and your moon together is a great, and you want to throw the ascendant, that's your big three. Mm-hmm. But the sun and moon would be the two most important positions in astrology.
Absolutely. You said it well too, is like the yin and the yang part of who you are, with your sun, kind of who you are. The moon is kind of sometimes in the background, sometimes it becomes more dominant depending on the situation, but just the really, those two together, like your sun moon composite together. And you can even there's some tools online where you can look at those, I think are huge. Like that really will give you a fuller, and then you can dive into other aspects of your chart. But at least if you have the sun and moon, I think it's a great start for you to see kind of those two bodies together. Like, this is kind of who I am, or maybe the yang. And then this is kind of like coupled with that, a huge part of my makeup. And then, so great to, talk to you about this and kind of go through some of the different moon signs today, Jesse, and see what those flavors are, and, kind of how those show up and stuff like that. Cause I think it's one thing a lot of people don't necessarily, first of all, know about. If they know kind of what their moon sign is, they might not have a real idea of what does that feel like, how does that express itself? So it'd be fun to kind of look through some of the different ones out there and talk about it a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah, man. And it's like your inner environment is the description I've heard that stuck with me. If you imagine your inner world, like what's the environment like, right? For me and Dave, it's Sagittarius, right? So it's ruled by Jupiter. We'll talk about what planet each one's ruled by too. So it's expansive. It's about learning. It's about traveling. It's about growing. It's very social. Mm-hmm. And it's different for everyone. So, some are more compatible with others. You also, like Dave was saying, like looking between the relation between your sun and your moon, if they're opposite, if they're square, which is when they're 3 signs away or 90 degrees away, that's more difficult than if they're sextile, 2 signs away, or trine, 4 signs away. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and the last thing, I guess we'll talk about the romance. So we'll just dive into each sign, starting with Aries. I already fucked up my screw. I already cussed, so now whatever. We can cuss a few times. We'll try to keep it down.
Yeah, well,
But yeah, happens. It's not bad. I always feel like I'm like being censored or edited in that way, but no. But anyways, yeah. So we'll start. Let's just start with timer now. We'll start with Aries. Aries Moon, great place to start. And yeah, let's just jump in whenever. Just jump in whenever. So this is, so in astrology we go air, earth. So it goes air, earth. So Aries is, or excuse me, fire. Aries is fire. Earth, Taurus is earth. Gemini, air. Cancer, water, and then it goes fire, Leo, earth, Virgo, and the whole cycle in 3 times. Yeah. So this is the first fire sign. It's the first sign of Aries. So it's a very Aries Moon. Very it can make someone very impulsive. That's something I've noticed from a lot of Aries Moon people, is that they're very impulsive, and sometimes, you know, and there's always the evolutions of how evolved a certain energy is, but low Aries energy is, I think without act, or I act without thinking. Like something hits me, the impulse hits me, and I act. And Aries Moon people, you know, they can have that impulse to just do stuff, especially on an emotional level. When they feel triggered, they can really bounce back right away and be like, shit, did I just say that thing?
I think you nailed it there. Like Aries in general in the zodiac is the initiator, and I think when you add it to the moon, which is like your emotions, it's just impulsive, right? Like all the fire signs, I think, well, especially Aries and Sag, kind of were a little bit impulsive. Maybe Leo a little less because it's the fixed fire. But I think that with Aries, it's just like in the moon, there is a need to act first, think later, you know, and that is part of the bravery that Aries has as well, because it is the starter. And I always say, well, Aries has to just, you know, just kind of jump, just do it. And so I feel like these, you know, folks that have an Aries moon, those that I know that have an Aries moon, it's all about getting out there and exploring things. So I do connect it with the need to have action, like really a need to do something. Could be physical. A lot of times physical, I think that really satisfies what they're doing, an adventure. They're kind of that pioneer. So they've got to have something kind of new. Like whenever I'm around somebody with an Aries moon, it's usually pretty fun, because they're like, oh, you know, have you ever done this? And I'm like, no, I don't know if I want to do that. And they're like, let's just do it. Right. And they'll do it. And you can go with them if you want to or not. So I think they always are, you know, really doing something, trying new things, and maybe having a challenge. Like Aries is really big on like challenging themselves to see like to what level they can break boundaries. And so I do feel like in a lot of ways there is a need to not just stick with the status quo and have like a freshness, you know, that's a part of their experience, which is really, because they're the initiator. So if they're going to constantly just be doing the same old thing, and some other moons, they're like that, they want a more stable approach. But I feel like Aries is like, okay, let's get this new thing going, you know? So that's important for them.
Yeah.
So. But and when they don't have that, they can get kind of just stagnant, and so it drives them to do something new. So.
Definitely. I think also, like, because Aries is ruled by Mars, right? Mm-hmm. So Mars is all about challenges. It's very red energy, Aries. Like, you think of the brightest red. I'm with an Aries on my lap right now. It's not my girlfriend. It's my baby Mika, who's an Aries Sun and Mercury, and she's definitely an Aries Mercury because she's the least shy cat ever. She speaks her mind. She doesn't give a shit. She's kind of like bored easily. She always wants to show off, like, you know, defy logic and do the thing that no one's ever done. And it can be a little bit, so Aries is a little bit of it can be a childish energy. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Leo's also a childish energy at times, right? It likes to kind of show off and show that it can be first. Really, like you said, loves a challenge. So I think with most of the fire signs, there's a real gregariousness, mostly Leo, but like a real need to want to be able to like express the inner child and to have fun and not take things too seriously. And that's why if we think about compatibility, I'll get back to the Mars thing in a second. You know, with that energy, you're not going to really do well with someone who's overly serious most of the time. I mean, it can depend. I've seen Aries and Capricorn work a lot together, but yeah, you really want to be able to express yourself and like a challenge. When it comes to Mars, so Mars rules Aries. So this is the thing. So people, you think with the Aries moon, they need the challenge, like we were saying, they need to be able to keep going in independence and adventure. But you really have to look at what sign the Mars is in, because if it's in like a detriment, if it's in its detriment in Libra, or maybe even Cancer or Pisces, regardless of whether that person's a double Aries, they still might have problems with that energy of going forward. So really understanding where the Mars is and what house. So also we forgot to really kind of add to our intro about like houses. We're not going into that in this video, but what house your moon is in is very important too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Great add on. So just, going back to the fact that with astrology, there's so many layers, which makes it really cool if you can keep on digging into it. And, humans are complex. And so it's not like you can ever say, and don't let, if you're studying astrology for the first time, don't ever let anybody just say, well, you're, Aries sun or Aries moon. So you're just always, I don't know, whatever, fill in the blank, impulsive.
Yeah.
Because it could depend on where your moon is, like whatever house it's in. If it's in a house that's, a little less impulsive, it adds that flavor to it. And then, if it's in, like you said, Jesse, an aspect, that kind of adds another dimension to it as well. So it's a start, which is great because some people don't even know what sign their moon is in, but then you want to kind of pick apart and keep, pulling back the layers of the onion to see, and houses can help with that too, and aspects. And then I like how you added, each of the signs has a ruling planet. So, look at where your moon sign is, but then the next step could be, what is that ruling planet? In the case of Aries moon, Mars. If you have, Taurus moon, which we'll talk about in a minute, that'd be Venus. And so where are these things in your chart? Because it'll give you just it'll re-emphasize that energy and how that's playing out. So really good.
Yeah, exactly. Just a few other things about Aries. It's also like I see it in a lot of famous women's chart. And I always think of it as like the emotional warrior. Like people with an Aries moon, they just have this ability to kind of like get out of the once they kind of like are in the shit, they have an ability to kind of climb out and very much like they love having their own space. Sometimes they can be a little bit uncomfortable with sentimental displays, not always, but it's very headstrong. So it can sometimes see that as kind of like weak, but not all the time, but very, all about calling a spade, no bullshit. Like this is what it is.
Right.
That's pretty much all I got on that one.
Yeah. The honesty factor I think is really important. So, with the Aries moon, it's act first, think later. It's speak first, maybe think later. So, it can sometimes get in trouble for that, but I think it's just its mode of operation that brings it a lot of good stuff too. So, and it needs that. Yeah, in relationships, the physical freedom, I would say with Aries can be kind of a loner because it is about focusing on themselves so they can learn about themselves. That's Definitely. A huge thing in this lifetime. We all come in with different missions, and their mission is to push the boundaries of their area and find out how they can find out about themselves. And that's part of what they do when they in their daily lives. So really important.
Definitely. All right, should we do Taurus?
Let's do Taurus. Yeah, let's do Taurus. So moving from fire over to earth, as you were saying, what's the vibe you get on the Taurus moon, Jesse, or per your experience or what you know?
So it's a very strong moon placement. It's exalted in Taurus, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it likes to. It means that the moon, which is in dignity and in Cancer, which means it works best or it's most suited for. It's the moon and different planets are more suited for different signs. So kind of with the Aries thing, like Aries is best in Mars. It's also great in the Sun, but it's difficult in the moon. Taurus, or the moon in Taurus is very good, and people really have an emotional need for stability, steady routines, and kind of maintenance of the good things in life, I guess you can say. And so they can be very in touch with it creates people who are very, there's like usually a very strong psychosomatic connection, like body, mind, body, emotion connection. So these kind of people could really benefit a lot from getting in touch with their bodies per se, if it's through whatever therapy or yoga or whatever people do. And my dad's a Taurus Moon. Who else? But yeah, so it makes them usually pretty dependable, pragmatic emotionally, and they can sometimes attach too much of their self-worth to material security. And sometimes like maybe like it's better for it to take more of its, to go the opposite direction, to find that that security connected with you know, going within themselves and growth and everything related to that. But sometimes they get too obsessed with the physical gains and possessions and stuff like that, and try to cling on to those.
Yeah, right. So
A lot
Taurus,
more.
for sure. Yeah, Taurus with possessions and kind of, you know, it is Earth. So Earth sign, so connected with, and then connected with Venus as well. So valuables, possessions, the earthy stuff, the, you know, the great things of the earth, but also, you know, maybe even can get fixed because it is a fixed sign to Taurus, like in its emotions. So if it feels, I think with Taurus too, like the great thing about Taurus is like Aries, like is like the energy that like starts things, and then Taurus is like, okay, let's settle the energy, let's use it, it's connected with resources, it's connected with survival. And so how does it really make sure that it has all these physical things to survive, and that's connected with your body, and you know, the simple things in life, the essential things we need. And so I think that Taurus, if you're a Taurus sun or a Taurus moon, but I think especially a Taurus moon, you look at life through this lens of your physical needs and those physical things that nurture you, and they can be very sensual as well. And that way, kind of simplistic, you know, like I always think of like Taurus has these beautifully simple ways of looking at life, and even in this kind of like physical artistic things, you know, your need here
Venus.
might be met through the Venus, right? The pleasure, right? Pleasure of body, of food, of smell, of, you know, aromas, different things like that. And that really is something that if you don't have that need met, then I think, and it could be around your possessions, or you don't feel secure, the moon is often connected with security, then it can really kind of trigger you. So, you know, with moon, I like how we're kind of talking a little bit about triggers, because I think it is a trigger point on the negative side of things that can really trigger you. Or maybe a good side, if we look at triggers as a positive, like trigger you or inspire you. Like,
Yeah.
and when you get inspired and you feel like your soul is fed, you can really feel alive. And that's why I think so many of us, when we look at our moon sign and those qualities, if we've got that, we're good. And we're, you know, like the moon is connected with Cancer, which is connected with home, and we feel home, and we feel safe, right? The moon is about like safety, or Cancer is about safety. And so when we look at, we've got safety and security, we feel like we're good, we're in a good place. And when we're not, that's kind of like upset. And then we just really we see the more negative expressions of that moon, you know, when we don't have that. But with Taurus, it's really my physical needs. That could translate as far as money too, like holding on to money, holding on to resources, because that's a huge need for a Taurus moon. So
Definitely, yeah. And I think a huge thing for any Taurus placement is just they have a huge attachment to the kind of the way things, like if you know, if it's like their early friends, family, that place they grew up, or whatever it is, you know, unlike our moon sign Sag, where it's like second nature. Keep switching my positions, my legs are so sore. But yeah, it's like our natural position to kind of like take risks and want to live in different places. Taurus is the opposite, right? So Taurus, it's Venusian, but it's almost like the energy of like sitting under a palm tree and just everything is so nice. Why would you change it, you know? And Taurus, that could be a huge difficulty, is sometimes in life, they're is more growth in going through risky changes than there is in just sitting and staying where you are more comfortable. And it can be really difficult for people Taurus Moon who have an emotional connection to that way of life to take these risks.
Absolutely. And what you got me thinking about, Jesse, too, is with Taurus, it's so connected with values. And it's interesting because I have a Sag Moon, but it's in the second house, which is a Taurus house. So it's kind of like an honorary Taurus Moon. And I can relate to this. Like, if I'm comfy and cozy with my things, I'm good. And I think it gives you kind of more of a, not necessarily traditional, but you'll want to stick with something that's good and maybe not go outside of that as much. And, you know, you have certain values that are in place that you want to hope are a little bit like stable, and stability is really big with Taurus. And if that's threatened, you really feel like a lot is at stake. Your values, your principles, the way you make sense of your world and your structure. And so it is a little bit unmovable in that regard, because it's kind of maintaining like your nourishment. It's your structure that you use to, you know, keep yourself grounded in life. And so with Taurus, I think sometimes you can see a lot of that resistance because it really is, you know, rooted in that so much. So, and it's, you know, it stays grounded in that knowing. And so yeah, with Taurus Moon, I think it really, you could see a bend towards more of a conventional way of approaching things, or what's become known for them meaning conventional, because conventional can mean a lot of different things. But it could be more being comfortable with the status quo, as opposed to, you know, maybe you've got a Aquarius Moon, for example, or another moon that's more just, you know, okay, let's shake it up. Let's do something different. So.
Yeah, totally. And if we think of that inner environment, like as an art picture, it's like the Aries one is this fiery den, and the Taurus one is just like a calm oasis, you know, and something like that. We can try, yeah, like what do you imagine? Yeah, some like calm, soothing area, and it's all nice, and that's kind of why it feels good, and the moon feels good in Taurus, because Taurus is so chill.
So chill. Yeah, like I love the imagery you're bringing in. It's almost like this nice music in the background, maybe some nice classical or some nice jazz. Everything's pretty chill. It's very, you know, full of pleasure and nice aromas and nice music, maybe some nice artwork. But you're really like soaking in the physical attributes of your environment. So it might be a moon that isn't like super intellectual, you know, whereas like some of the air moons are more intellectual and in their head. Like I would say Taurus Moon is like the first thing they're going to do, as far as if they need something, is like pick up something to eat or something to smell or something to feel. 5 senses, right? Is going to be a huge.
Very mindful. I thought before you said that, I thought of mindfulness, and just like Taurus is like, it's very present. It's like, it's really good at just like people of Taurus moons are naturally kind of mindful people, you know. They're not really like tripping about the past that I've met, and it makes sense. They're very like engaged with the senses of the here and now. They're not looking ahead, they're not looking behind, they're here, they're present. That's why they can be quite chill people to be around, because they're actually there.
Oh, that's a great ad. Yeah, because they're just the here and now. It's uncomplicated. Like I would agree with you, because they're less like some of the other signs, mental and in their head. It's just a very simple, I'm present, I'm in my body. And why, you know, some meditations are really about how to connect in with your body, the guided meditations. It's kind of Taurus, right? Because you're going through all the parts of your body and feeling your body, and then in doing so, you're not getting all wrapped up in the future or the past, or you're here. And probably why massage is so, you know, probably a Taurus moon probably love massage.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just like, oh,
well, everyone does, but it's very Taurian to get a massage, or to go to, you know, to do mindfulness meditation, all that, you know. It's but like one thing I wanted to add before I forgot it was like this is like what comes natural to Taurus. So it's like if you don't have this energy in your chart, like if you're like me and you have no earth in your chart, you actually might like benefit, like in terms of remedies, you might really benefit from from diving into the energy of Taurus and getting massages and doing mindfulness, because I think it would come more naturally for them. So maybe they wouldn't really need it as much as I don't know, someone
Yeah.
like me.
I'm very lacking. It's funny. The only earth sign I have in my chart is the Mars in Taurus. So, and I think that saves the day for me in tricky situations where I get out of balance, and I'm like, okay, bring it in. Don't let the fire take over. Don't let the, whatever, the air get out of control. And so it helps a lot in that regard. Yeah, it keeps you. I like that. Yeah. So if you look at your chart and you get the breakdown of, mainly fire, mainly air, mainly water, but I don't have a lot of earth as an example, it might be really nice to get in touch with that part of your chart, or that does have some of that, or do those things that can give you more of a balance. That's a great way to go about it, I think. So for those deficiencies.
Yeah. All right, Gemini time.
Let's do Gemini. Yeah. The twin.
All right. Yeah, the mutable. So the first mutable. So besides the 4 elements, we have cardinal, which is Aries is the first cardinal. Then it goes fixed Taurus and mutable Gemini. So what's mutable? Mutable, I always describe it as go with the flow. So the mutable signs are Gemini, Sag, Virgo, Pisces, and it's very they have a lot of dexterity, and very able to kind of realign their life when the needs call. It's like very, very flexible, I guess is how else would you define mutable? Flexible, right?
Yeah, flexible. I love it. You said go with the flow. I feel like when you think of the mutable signs of Gemini, Virgo, and Sag, pretty willing to like pivot and change and go with the flow. And you'll see with all the mutable signs too that there's always the 2 ways it can go. Like, you got Pisces with the fish that are going different directions, and you got Gemini that has the 2 twins that you could, say you could argue you've got the evil twin and the good twin. And then, Virgo has its ways too, where it can be very helping and serving society and out there, but then it can be a hermit, right? So I think you got the mutable, the mutability that is part of the flexibility of those signs. And then I missed one too with Sag. You've got kind of the fire and brimstone, or you've got the wise philosopher, inspirer. So it's there's the changeability that on the positive side can bring a lot of flexibility. On the negative side, each of the signs has a negative expression, but it can, you can go a different direction, but that's the variety that it offers too. So it's less fixed, in a certain, mode.
Very good explanation.
Cool. Yeah. And the air, no, thanks. The air is, it's intellectual, it's intellect. So when we think about air signs, it is the energy of getting in your head more. And that's not in a bad sense. Like in worst case, like you get trapped in your head. Like a Gemini is just like thinking all these ideas, and it's going down different paths, and it's like so trapped in its head, it doesn't take care of its body. Worst case scenario can happen with all the air signs. Because it's a mental plane. But I think at its best, what's nice with the air signs is it can get detached enough from, like, I feel like an air moon is a great placement in that it can kind of like detach itself from, more of the situation and think through things. And sometimes that's really nice to have around when things are heated in life, and you have somebody who can think through and process things. And I would say probably with this placement, if you have an air moon and you have a Gemini moon, Gemini is all about information. So if you're not getting that information, you really feel like you're being stymied, and that could probably be really frustrating for you. Or diversity is also important with Gemini, and it's but it is a mental sign. It really can be. It's all about stimulation. Like I would say Gemini moon really does need to have that intellectual stimulation, and that could come about in really good conversations or debate, you know, all those kind of things that would require that, you know, versatility of thought and processing and thinking. And for that reason, probably a really good person on their feet to think about things and stuff like that. So yeah, and they kind of, you know, like almost like you might say in some cases, a Gemini in general or Gemini Moon especially seems like it has kind of can have a split personality,
Yeah.
because they kind of are working, you know what I mean? Like they're always working in two different planes, that they have a lot of dexterity of mentally and physically too. You can see that as well, because they're able to just, they bounce back and forth between things. This is a quickness, right? Gemini's all about quickness. And so with thought, I think you could easily get yourself kind of split in a lot of different directions. And for that reason, it can come off as like just who are you? You know, who am I dealing with from this moment to the next? And it's because Gemini can get into all those different roles, and that's part of it. That's part of what they enjoy, the stimulation and the versatility. So
Yeah. It's a very green kind of, it's ruled by Mercury, so it's very green, the environment, and they like to communicate. They're kind of the social butterflies, like all over the place, super fast. Kind of like it can be so fast to the point that Gemini Moon can be a very, like, lots of people can have lots of anxiety, and if you don't know how to control it, these are people, you know, people who have a lot of Gemini or Gemini Moons or stelliums in the third, they can have anxiety problems, different psychopathology linked to that. But yeah, it's very curious. So there's an emotional need to discover. It's like the gossip queen, like a newspaper energy, just wanting to learn. Not like really. It's the opposite of Sagittarius. So it's about collecting the little pieces of information. So Sagittarius will be more concerned with like the big themes, like the more, I guess, philosophical deep truths. But Gemini is interested in collecting little pieces of evidence that then can be turned into these great truths in Sagittarius. So yeah, it's all about experience, all about change. Sometimes, like, I was randomly watching, like, in terms of the love stuff, we should touch on that for these signs too. But I think Gemini, you know, it is very curious. So, you know, it needs to be open to, like, in relationships, lots of Gemini energy is like open to different types of relationship. They sometimes will, you know, Venus and Gemini is like, you know, known for getting bored of their partners quite fast and really wanting to like discover new different types of love or whatever. But yeah, you know, they really like, they have an emotional need for communication as well. So they really like, they like to learn. So they're people who have this very quick mind that sometimes they don't even, they need to learn. So that's like when we're talking about mindfulness with Taurus, Gemini is a sign that can really learn from mindfulness, so they can learn to control that car that is them, right? And their mind, right? Because it can seem like so out of control sometimes. And you know, Gemini, Pisces, known for addiction as well. So it can lead to like, okay, if I find this drug that can kind of chill me out, so they really have to watch out for that. And yeah, so emotional balance is also coming from feeling connected to their immediate environment and just having people in their life. Whenever I have clients that have Gemini Moon, which happens quite a bit, they're always people who book like the sessions where they talk to me just about like the follow-up sessions, because they do have this need for communication and curiosity and discovering more. But they have an emotional need to be connected with their environment, to be connected with people around them, people where they live, even if it's just like the barber, the person that, like, they like small talk. There's an emotional, and people with Gemini Moons will get this and some people won't, like there's an emotional element to small talk, and some signs like Scorpio will maybe look at the small talk like, fuck small talk, you know, it's bullshit because they're so deep. But it's not to say Gemini is not deep. It's just that they get an emotional component, Gemini Moon, out of small talk.
So well said. I just remember a buddy of mine who is a Gemini Moon, and we would go out, you know, or go to a bar or go out to a restaurant, whatever, and always talking up the bartender or always talking up somebody. And it was just kind of a flirtatious, you know, Gemini is very flirtatious, right? And they're all about like communicating and connecting and with the neighborhood, right? Like the third house, Gemini is like your neighbors and your local community, whereas like Sagittarius is international or abroad or foreign lands, foreign places. And so I think Gemini is, very like, what's in the know, what's the gossip. It's kind of like the TMZ energy for, what's the scoop with everybody that's going on, wants to know all that. And so there is an emotional need for kind of knowing what's up with this person, what's up with that person. And that there's always like a curiosity that's really important for them. I think that they do have that, that need met for information on things. So it's and in relationships, I would say probably a need for somebody to be open. It might be that they do have more of an open relationship, because Gemini isn't one that's going to be more fixed, right? It wants to explore, and that can be anything. It could be something intellectually, but it also can be like intellectually you learn stuff through experiences. So it might be through having many partners. It might be through exploring different sexualities. It could be through exploring a lot of different things that even people would consider taboo, because Gemini is so open, right? The sign is so, whereas other signs are like, no, not for me, no thank you, that I don't even want to consider that menu item. But Gemini is like, no, I want to try it out, I want to try it all, and I want to figure out for myself. And that's kind of the beauty of Gemini's openness. But if you're not that type of person, then you probably wouldn't be a great fit for a Gemini moon. You know what I mean? Like that would be, I think, an important thing. And if you see that in your partner, where you're like, man, this person is fickle as hell, it's because they're constantly they're wanting to explore, like you said. And that's part of their makeup, right? Whenever I think of Gemini, it's almost like I think of the bumblebee, like in spring, that's like around every little flower and picking up a bit of this pollen, a bit of this pollen, that pollen. And that's part of their game, not game in meaning that just the way they learn and the way they, they're satisfied. So.
And they're the kind of people that will like jump, like they can be so flirty that they'll like they can like accidentally enter relationships, where like they're not even trying to, and they're like, fuck, like, wait, is this, like, I thought, like, because they're just so curious, and maybe they'll just want to learn something about the other person, and then before they know it, like, they're so social that, like, shit, the other person like has expectations, but they do not like expectations. So Gemini, they like to be with people who are exciting, who can keep up with them mentally, who can sling exciting ideas and different. It's very mental, the attraction. It can also be very platonic, like you said, like they're willing to try whatever. So there can be, this is like the sign of bisexuality, right? Like Gemini is associated with that. I was watching a video by Honey the astrologer, and it was like a video on cheating, or like how to see cheaters in a chart. There's tons of different indications. It was weird. I had like so many of them. I'm not a cheater at all. I think it's the Pisces part that kind of saves me. But I was like, fuck, that's like nearly everyone so far.
That's funny.
But a lot, she was saying like Gemini, like a lot of the indications of infidelity were Gemini related. And really it's because like they just need that openness, that ability to like move on, or not move on, to like have an open relationship, and because they really want to, like the bumblebee from one to the next.
It's constantly part of the growth process too for them, I think, and it's lovely, I think, speaking with somebody who has strong Gemini placements, and especially if you have a Gemini sun or Gemini moon, or planets in the third house, because they're always like open to, like, it's never like, usually, unless it's stressed out, that like this is the end of the conversation. It's like, no, well, here's one point of view, but then here's another one, and this other point of view might be very contradictory to the other one, but they're still open to exploring all the options, which can make a really nice friend in that regard, especially almost like maybe a therapist too, because you have somebody who is willing to talk you through all the stuff and they're not judging you for it, right?
And super, I just want to say, super good for like sales or careers where where you really profit from being able to have small talk and be able to create relationships that might not, like I said, to the Scorpio Piscean or whatever, like just be like, like to me, I can't stand these, like that's why like those types of careers. Like I did sales for a tiny bit. I was good at the start, but then I just like couldn't do it anymore because it's just like that Gemini energy loves it. You know, they love not just sales, any kind of business I'm not saying like that necessarily involves like being a genius, like Machiavelli poker player with like opponents, but like, or with, you know, with your business moves, but like just consistency, social consistency. They can be there. It's very extroverted, so they can be in an environment over time and make an impact.
Yeah, the Gemini energy is almost like somebody who would be extremely good at like role play. I mean, because they can just take on the character, and it's almost like they lose touch with themselves. They're so like into that role, and they do, and they have a lot of fun with that. Like I feel like they would be like the really good comedian who just can take on with the, you know, the flip of, you know, a switch, can go from one thing to the other, and they can take on all these different personalities, and they enjoy it. You know, it's kind of a game for them because of that mental dexterity. They love puzzles, I think, and love all these things that take a lot of mental agility, because it really like it stimulates them. And so I would imagine these would even be people that really get a lot out of verbal exchanges, and they really want, like, they wouldn't want a partner that's doesn't talk very much. You know, that would kind of probably be like, if you have a Gemini moon and unless it's a balancing thing where like you were getting to before, where, you know, the Gemini moon doesn't have any earth in their chart, for example, then it might be nice to have a partner who has some Gemini aspects, but also or air aspects, but also has some earth to keep them stable, you know, because that can balance things out a little bit, because, you know, you don't want too much of that, and then it's just, you know, it's overkill. But
exactly. All right, Cancer time.
Cancer, home of the moon.
Yes. By the way, probably should have talked about this before. Should I like do like a signal? I don't know. I feel like we should keep these like a certain amount of minutes.
Yeah.
Like try to keep them a certain amount of minutes. We just went way over the top on Gemini. Maybe it was needed. Maybe when we hit like 8 minutes, I'll go like this or something. And
sounds good.
The next two minutes, we'll try to wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So with Cancer, Cancer moon, this is what maybe in astrology say, what sign is the moon best in? Okay, it doesn't make sense, but it's most comfortable, not best, in Cancer, because Cancer is the sign that's connected. It's in dignity. The moon is a dignity in Cancer. And why do you feel that's the way it is, Dave?
Well, I feel like whenever you have a planet that is in its own element, then it's at home. It's just naturally functioning without really any contradiction. And so I think when you've got the moon, which symbolizes the emotions and comfort and security, and it is in the sign that is connected with that, it's in that natural home environment. And, you know, Cancer in this case, the moon in Cancer, that really is home. And so I feel like, you know, a person with this placement really is in touch, especially in touch with their emotions and the need for emotional security. I mean, every moon placement has this, but especially I think if you look at a Cancer moon, I mean, really they're all about, it's kind of like you're a big softie. I mean, you could have other, right? Like you could have, I mean, you could even have an Aries sun, but then you got a Cancer moon, and there's a part of you that you might not see it all the time, but there's a part of you that has this soft, I think of Cancer is because it has Cancer is the crab, but like it's to protect that soft side, right? Because otherwise it's
so sensitive to, and such a sponge for all the energy around it. Just takes everything in, right?
Yes. I mean, I almost feel like in some cases more than Pisces, because I feel like Pisces gets the classification as the psychic sponge, but I feel like Cancer like internalizes it, whereas like, you know, Pisces can like float off. Or
Pisces is like, oh, I feel all that shit, but my imagination is so fucking good that I can create it like a world and leave my body, and I don't have to feel it. It's an escape artist. But Cancer, it's like it's not earth, but it's way more grounded. I think of it like, I don't know, like I feel like Taurus and Cancer like is like the perfect mother is a Cancer Taurus, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like these like the little marbles, where they come marbles, like I think of water. What's those rocks called? Like they look like skip rocks that like look really good with water. I don't know.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you can skip across. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what they're called exactly.
Those little rocks, I don't know. That's like Cancer energy, just this very smooth pond with those rocks, and yeah, like it's very nurturing, very, very nurturing energy. And it doesn't have that. It's what I was saying is that it's Earth's, it's water, but it has that kind of like groundedness to it. So it doesn't have that flightiness of escapism that Pisces has, and it really feels it all, and sometimes really takes it for itself. So yeah.
Absolutely. Like I would see, like at its worst, I think this placement with the moon in Cancer can be like the crazy worry wart. It's so emotionally connected to what's going on. And it's in a good sense, because you think of like the mother who's protecting the vulnerable child or vulnerable, like this is like at its best, it can be like the freaking security guard of, the whatever their family is, because really this is the person when the going gets tough, they're going to really be like the mama bear that's making sure that the cubs are protected. And so even though we say like vulnerable and they take everything in, like I don't want anybody to confuse that for weakness necessarily. It's just they're so connected in with that, because they realize that we need to have a sense of like guardrails. And this is really connected with emotions because it's a water sign. So whereas I feel like Taurus is more connected with our physical things and the security there, Cancer is more like emotional. Like I would feel like a Cancer moon is like, if the emotional situation, and it might be physical too, because the physical stuff can create, problems with ourselves emotionally. But if you're not emotionally in a safe space, I feel like Cancer moon can really pick up on that. They can really provide that space for you where you feel safe, because I feel like Cancer is all about creating safety, which usually is something you get in home, which is, connected with Cancer. And I also feel like somebody with a Cancer moon wants to feel comfortable, like wants to feel emotionally comfortable with those people that they consider near and dear to them. So if you want to be in a relationship with a Cancer moon, or you are a Cancer moon, I think it's really important that there can be that vulnerability, and where you can have a sense of safety with that person that you're engaging with, and that you make them feel safe. And one other thing is that really too, I feel like Cancer in a way can be a little bit exclusive or choosy, because it's not letting everything in the door, right? It's not just like, whereas Gemini, I think, would let everything in the door. I think Cancer is more like, no, I'm not letting everything into my home, because if I let every person, including some shady characters in, we could have a real problem here, and it's all about creating protection in that way.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I actually have a different, I think I know what you're saying, but my experience with Cancer moon though is that they do have that tendency, but when it comes to relationships, sometimes they can be, because they're such empaths, and every water sign, or Pisces really more than Scorpio, I would say, mostly Pisces and Cancer are very like, they see the potential of the other person. So sometimes they let the like enter the very needy, because they're so nurturing, that sometimes Cancer moons will let like they'll want to play mother. They want to play mother, whether they're a male or a female. They always want to kind of play that mother nurturing role, and sometimes that healer, and they'll let people in who are kind of energy vampires. And it's like there's a big need for them to know how to withdraw from these really needy relationships, from people that don't really love them, but just love kind of what they give them, So that was
that kind of mother
really important.
Got it.
But just a few other things. So this is another cardinal. So Cancer is interesting because like it's such a nurturing sign, but it's very intuitive and can make good businessmen. Like I say this a lot, like lots of the biggest businessmen in the world are Cancer, especially if you're on the cusp of Cancer and Leo, like on the last degrees of Cancer. You really have a lot from both sides, and you could be that businessman or businesswoman that has like that sixth sense. So very intuitive. I think of like the energy of like a moon on like a nice brick house with like a mother and a baby, like in like a baby like in a cradle, super secure, like kind of like a light blue, like the blue that the moon makes, that kind of like Van Gogh-esque energy, paint like you see in beautiful paintings, not the Van Gogh one, but you know what I mean. It's very connected to the past of people with Cancer moons. They have a really emotional need to be in their own emotions, to be with people who can really like understand their emotions, and they're very connected to their past. So sometimes these people can be people like opposite of like me and you, who are Sagittarius, which deals with the future. I'm very future oriented. I'm sure you are as well. People of Cancer moon will be sometimes like stuck in the past. They really like maybe they're thinking about their exes or how life used to be, maybe their early family life. They're also it's family first. They have a huge connection to family. If they're a Cancer, like my good friend here, my best friend where I live, he's a double Cancer, and he's just like, obviously loves his mom, but like he would do, he's like the one in his family who's like really trying to do everything to make his mom happy, like kind of go out of his way, and super connected to that. And yeah, that's kind of all I got. Just so sensitive. So sometimes it's like to the point where it's like too sensitive. But it's all about like learning to. So the big thing with Cancer energy also is like learning to have it as a strength, not have it as like, oh, you feel the energy of people around you and it makes you go inside your shell and run away. No, it's like about learning how to kind of block off your own energy so you can be a healer, and you can help other people, but also have boundaries, like you take from your opposite sign Capricorn, which is all about boundaries and discernment, and not like let people just run you over, because sometimes they can be a little bit weak-willed or just like overly like protective. So it's about finding that strength and understanding like how to kind of like let energy run through you and work with the intense energy so you can like heal instead of just being pushed away by the tough energy, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And don't get into a place where you get bitter and you get resentful, I think, too, with those emotions. If you get a little bit of your boundaries. You nailed it, I think, with Cancer, because you are so sensitive. So you need to be discriminating in certain cases around those boundaries. So cool.
Definitely. All right. Perfect. So next is Leah. So we've done, actually, no, this is our second. So this is our second fixed sign, our second fire sign. So Cancer was the first water. So we've done the first 4 signs. So this will probably be a new video, I'm guessing, because we're already 40 plus minutes in. So Leo is very, how you say it? It's fixed energy. It's fixed fire. It is Leo moon. They like to kind of be the stars, I guess. They like to feel like they like people to watch them, not in a way that's necessarily narcissistic, but they just like to be, engaged and get attention and have that growth, that spiritual creative growth, and very competitive too. I've found, but sometimes lazy though. It's like they're competitive, but sometimes they can be lazy. What do you think about Leo
Yeah,
people?
it's an interesting one. So my mom has this placement, and I feel like
So
sometimes
is mine. So is mine.
Your mom does too.
What is she? What's her son?
Her
Yeah, what's her
son
sun
is
sign? Is she Virgo?
Aquarius. No, she's an
Go on.
Aquarius. But I feel like sometimes
Virgo
she's
rising.
more of Virgo rising. Okay. Yeah, I feel like sometimes my mom, she's more of a Leo, because it is about like highest expression, very honorable, very dignified, right? When that moon doesn't, in some cases, get because Leo can be about attention or at least being honored, right? Like you want to be honored for the wisdom you shed. I mean, these can be really people that, in a lot of cases, like Leo sons, they shed a lot of great wisdom, and they really, they can be a great like spokesperson, and they really can also, they function from, whenever I think of Leo energy, it's authentic and from the heart. And it really is in that way, like a Leo, just a high functioning Leo is really bringing something very special from the heart. It's not overly rehearsed. It's just very natural, and that's why people connect with that energy so well, because they're just like, oh, this person is just talking from their heart. And so I feel like in that way there is a need for that recognition and the you know, the acknowledgement, right? Of, hey, this is coming straight from my heart, and this is something I want to give to you as a gift, because I do feel like, you know, Leo is very mindful of those people that they have around them, and you know, they're not just going to like kind of, they might have a lot of followers in some way because, you know, they really do kind of bring a lot of great wisdom to the table, and maybe, you know, even just the energy of kind of the entertainer, and getting, you know, the
Yeah.
spotlight in that way. But I think they can be like, you know, hey, they want to be around people that are going to honor what they bring. And when that doesn't happen, I think if you have a Leo moon and you feel like people are shunning you and not appreciating you, then that hurts a lot, because you do
Mhm.
really, you know, you come from an honest place, and I think really at your heart you do want to really bring something that you know, you care about others, and so you want to do it in a dignified fashion. And when you feel that isn't honored, you just feel like you're really being I don't know. It's hard. I think sometimes at its worst, like ego can get in the way, right? And then you get butt hurt because you feel like, well, this person just doesn't give a rip about me, or they're not honoring me, and so they can personally, you can take stuff really personally. I think with a Leo moon, you can. Um,
Definitely. It's very sensitive. It's very sensitive.
mhm. Yeah, can be really like feel like it's dishonored almost very quickly. And this is fire, right? So even though it's fixed fire, it can roar up in a moment, and fire is just impulsive, right? Like Aries and Sagittarius. So when it gets pissed, it can, you know, it's like throwing a match on some gas, and look out, you're going to hear that lion roar, and it's going to tell you. I think it's, you know, it's like you know, when we both have cats, Jesse, and when the cat doesn't get fed, when you don't feed Kitty, you're gonna hear about it. You're not gonna be able to like tell Kitty to just shut up. They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
they're gonna
They're
throw a
gonna
fit.
roar.
They're gonna roar. So, you know, in much the same way, you want to make sure that you're heard, or that person that has a Leo moon, that they can be heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Definitely resonate with everything you said. Things I wrote down. So yeah, they can be very pride, lots of pride, sometimes overly proud. They have to watch out for like letting their ego get in the way. And sometimes since it's the moon is what's hidden. So their moon can kind of, that pride can get in the way, and it can be very stubborn. Yeah, they require tons of love. You went over that. And it's all about, yeah, giving, very associated. So they really need to be in touch with their inner child, and be like Aries, like I was saying, Aries need to be able to like be childish, whatever the age, and be creative. It's super creative position of the moon.
mhm.
And another thing I've noticed about Leo moons is that regardless of the sun sign, like I have a friend over here who's a Taurus sun, Leo moon, and he's very humble, kind of Taurus energy. But then like when you kind of like hang out with him and get in, like maybe like I think I had a party or something, like he was like usually like, it's I'm the one that has a party. It's my house. I'm kind of like a music, like when I'm in the zone, like if I'm the one who's paying for everything and people are at my house, like
Mhm.
sometimes I like give them, the music away. But if I'm like really feeling it, I'm that kind of guy where I'm like, I want to play the music for a while. Like this guy
Mhm.
was the only guy who like kind of like really got hurt by the fact that, but like we didn't really like want to listen to his music, because like me and my girlfriend are like the two music hogs and whatever. And that was like that Leo energy was that pride. I saw that pride of like really feeling like kind of like he should have like a say, even though like it's my house and I'm paying for everyone's stuff
Mhm.
in the party. But also that, yeah, that kind of like being hurt and like really needing that like wanting to wanting to be the spotlight too. Like that's another thing with
Mhm.
Leo moon is that like once like they like, and this is kind of what I was saying, like when they're comfortable, so they might not be comfortable right away, but when they are, they feel like they should be in the spotlight.
Mm.
And when they're not, right, so they really enjoy entertaining, playing the role of the comic, but when they're not, sometimes they can get a little crabby.
Yeah, like it's funny when you were saying all that. what was going through my mind with, gosh, I forgot too, my brother has Leo Moon. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and recently I've seen kind of the worst of that, but love you, Aaron, but he gets a little like theatrical. It gets very
Yeah.
theatrical, like drama. Like this is like the drama, like when it's bad, it's like you got to show the drama.
Yes.
It's
Totally.
not gonna be a quiet experience when you have a Leo. If you have a Leo Moon and you know this, or somebody who's a Leo Moon, you're gonna see it. It is gonna be, it's going to be made for prime time watching, and because it's all about the drama. Leo has that flair, and when it's connected with
Yes.
emotions, you're gonna see the good and the bad, right? You'll see probably the playfulness that comes about, but then also it could be you pissed me off, and now you're going to get my full, you know the
But
stage is mine.
isn't it more of, it's more hidden, it's like kind of what I'm trying to say about Leo Moon is, like, a lot of times you won't see this coming because they won't, like, maybe they're rising, unless they're like, double or triple
Mm,
Leo. But I feel like maybe your brother's this way, like, you only really see it once you get to know them, and it can be like the person you don't expect at all for them to be, like, very dramatic, and like the more you get to know them, the more you're like, oh wow. And I'm listening, I just have to get my power cord, but keep
yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with the moon, it isn't something that's always super apparent. So it's triggered by those things that are connected with emotions. And so anything that might be an emotional trigger will usually bring that out. And when we were talking about before with the yin and the yang with the moon, it is something that can be more kind of behind the scenes, that is only brought out when we've got something emotional that's playing. And so that's where with any of these moons, you might see it when emotions are involved or emotions are triggered, and then you see more of that emotional body come up, right? Or that excitement that comes up. So for example, with me being a Scorpio sun, you might look at me and be like, well, the dude's pretty chill, and then you talk to me more and you see more of this Sag, philosophical, excited, enthusiastic person that you might not otherwise. If you
Yeah.
just saw a picture of me, you might be like, oh, it's just kind of that, and the ascendant flavors that as well. But I think the if you just had like the picture of someone, you took a picture of them, a candid photograph that wasn't a selfie, you might get more of the sun, and then the moon is more of like if you talk to them a little bit more
Or
and you got,
midheaven.
yeah. What's that?
Because midheaven too for social media. Apparently, that's like the, I can't
Right.
like deny or agree with this, but that's the word, is that you see your midheaven. I don't believe that. I kind of see it, but I'll never ever believe I look like a Taurus more than I look like a Leo or a Pisces. I'll never believe it. It's impossible.
The midheaven,
What's
yeah.
your midheaven?
My midheaven is in Leo, so it's
I
interesting
could see that
because
kind of though.
you can kind of see that. I've always been
Do
told
you
too,
see?
though.
Do you seem like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think you could seem like a? Do you think you could seem like a Leo, like, and I could seem like a Taurus to people that like have never met us? I just don't see it. I don't know. Do I look? Is
I
there
don't,
anything Taurus about me?
I don't see as Taurus, but maybe if you take it another click into the, Venus is, your ruling planet of the midheaven is Taurus, that and
Oh
you
yeah,
have
Venus and
Aquarius.
Aquarius.
So if you
That's a really
built
good point.
that in, I mean, because that's what I do with, I mean, that's just kind of how I looked at it, is look at your midheaven, but then look at the ruling planet of your midheaven and see how that might build into it. Because I could definitely get obviously more of the Aquarian vibe with you, from a
Yeah.
public, just very speak my mind and here you go and this is it. And so yeah, that can be tricky. Again, another reason to unpack some of the astrology, because there's so many different layers, and that's just honoring our
Yeah.
individuality too, right? Like we're all very complex beings. So, but
Totally.
yeah, the moon can be, I mean, that's why moon, like know your moon sign at least, because it's a huge player in your astrology. And you know,
Yeah.
depending on where that is in your chart too, that can be huge in the aspects that are made to it.
Totally. So last thing I'll say about Leo is, yeah, they need partners. Leo Moon, like people I know with Leo Moon, they really need partners who are like really complimenting them and who really make them feel loved all the time. They can be kind of. I've had a Leo girlfriend, or like a girlfriend had a Leo stellium before, and she was really just needed so much. I didn't go out there for that long. It needed so much attention, you know, so much attention. Like really, like it was a little bit much for me being like all Aquarius, having the Aquarius energy. But I think that's something I've seen with Leos and love.
Yeah, the attention, yeah, the admiration, and like maybe a little bit of the ego stroking of, you know, kind of like a pet. You're always like kind of like stroking their ego, and it's kind of part of where they some can get a lot of their confidence, right? With Leo Moon, it's like, if you think about the moon as your need, if you're not getting that attention, you're kind of starving. And so there is a certain amount of, probably, if you're not getting that attention for a recognition, it will surface, and it could surface in very ugly ways. So
Yes.
sure.
All right, let's move to Virgo.
Cool.
So Virgo Moon, 6 in, or wait, yeah, 6 in. So this is a Earth sign. It's a mutable Earth sign. Virgo Moon can be I'll just say a few random things. There can be lots of anxiety with Virgo and Mercury energy in the moon sign. These are the people that can be almost OCD like, if not all the times, you know, like very reliable. There's real emotional need for things to be a certain way, right? Because Virgo is very methodological. I can never say that word. Methodological. I only say it when I talk fast. Needs things to be like in steps and routines, and you know, they have a real emotional need for things to be in order, and they really, so they find security in the little things in life, and they feel really content when everything in their daily life is structured and straightened away. Like they're the people that like to write lists. They enjoy running errands and doing things for people. Like they won't really say like that they like doing the things for people, that they kind of do. They kind of like cleaning sometimes, right? But like and sometimes they can complain and nag a little bit. If that's only if they don't get appreciated. So they really need to be shown appreciations in relationships. Like they'll be the ones that like their love language will be like, this is what I do. Like I do things to show love, and they do little things, you know, so it's very, very nice and very loyal. And they like to be, they unconsciously, they might not act like it, but they really like to have those things appreciated. So really reliable. They seek a partner who they can rely on, the Virgo Moon, because it is, and I think that Moon and Virgo, it's perfectionist as hell. So sometimes they can think like, you know, what's the saying? Like their side of the yard isn't dirty and the other person's is. Like they can really see the faults in other people, so they really have to look out for that. Also, they're really diligent about exercise. Virgo, you know, rules health, so really exercise and eating right. And what else can I say? Yeah, so really health wise, and like I said, the only bad part is obsession with striving for perfection, which can lead to neuroticism. Like it's Earth sign, so sometimes they can just be like flow killers. I remember I could say a girlfriend for every freaking sign, but like I've been in a relationship with a Virgo Moon girl, and she would send like texts that were like books. It was like just so much, like so many details, and I thought that was interesting. So yeah. So the last thing is the challenge is to remember to pause, take a deep breath, and just accept that not everything can be perfect. Do your best. You're probably doing better than 95% of people, and just do your best each day and don't stress.
Yeah. Great stuff there, Jesse. I think when I think of Virgo moons, and I have a few in my life, like they can be amazing friends. Like these are the type of people who, like, they don't, unlike maybe Leo that needs all the attention, these can be more of the behind the scenes people. I mean, depending on other placements in your chart, but you know, Virgo suns, but Virgo moons too. It's like they do, I think, want to be recognized for the do and what they do. Earth sign is all about kind of the physical, right? What you're doing in the world, or but I do feel like they can be very hard on themselves. And I think it's
Yes,
with,
very true.
very just like they internalize, and it's a strength because they look at all the details. And because of that reason, they can be super helpful because they see, like, I think with Virgo, they see the flaws first, and then they,
Great point.
and that's just the way they're focused, right? They're looking at life. Like I heard before that Virgo comes in looking at life and they're like, this is freaking crazy because they just see all the flaws, right? Or they see all the things that are off. And it's just like a weird experience for Virgo when they're born into this life because they're just like, doesn't everybody else see this? And
Yeah.
because of that, you know what I mean? And you might feel that with your mom, I guess, being a Virgo. But anyway, I think it's their skill though, because they can really, they're so analytical. This is a very
Yes.
practical moon. This is the moon that, like, I want to call when I need help. My car broke down. I have no freaking clue
Yes.
what to do with it. They're not going to be the overly emotional, gushy type of moons in a relationship, but they will be like, Dave, you need to eat. You need to take care of this. You need to do this. I will help you with it. And they would be the type of person I would, and my stepmom has a Virgo moon. I love her because she was the one when my parents were going through a divorce and my parents got remarried. She was able to analyze and talk through in a very detached, analytical way what was going on without getting
Yeah.
overly emotional. And so there is a very pragmatic part, I think, of that Virgo moon that's really nice. If they don't get overly critical of themselves, which sometimes can translate to being critical of others. The Virgo moon, the Virgo energy in general, they get really like critical. Like a Virgo moon, when it's in a good place, it's feeling good. It's like cracking little jokes, sarcasm. I think they're great with like sarcasm, like but really supportive. But they do need their space as well. Like I would say, the Virgo moon can tend to lean towards being a hermit. Um,
Yeah.
Virgo in general would prefer to have definitely some alone time, and they're okay with that. And when you talk about the moon needs, like, they'll be out there and be of service to people, but they need to like do them and be away from things for a while to decompress. Because there is it's almost like a physical sensitivity if we talk about, and if this is a moon, it's emotional too. But like with Cancer moons, there's an emotional sensitivity. But Virgo moon, I feel like that just it's Mercury, right? Mental energy as well. They're picking up on all the
Yes.
stuff, and then so it can
Anxious,
really,
right?
it'd be a lot of anxiety if things aren't in working order.
Potentially.
It can be they can get really like worked up in their heads, I think, and so that's why order is so important for them.
Yeah,
So
and they really well said. And they need to borrow from Pisces. So a lot of like if you're looking at if you have an energy in your birth chart that's kind of disrupted and you think, oh, I hate this part of me, look at the opposite sign, right? Virgo
mm,
more than maybe any other sign. Okay, that's a big statement, very Piscean blanket statement, but it's kind of true. It's like Virgo needs Pisces so fucking bad. But I guess Pisces really needs Virgo energy too. But man, because Pisces is all about letting go, trusting the universe, stop freaking out over the little small stuff that doesn't matter. And I'm not saying Virgo needs like 20 pills of that, but maybe like 1 or 2 pills of that energy, and not pills. But yeah, so other things about Virgo, I think of it's like if I was going on a big trip, like traveling the world, I would want a Virgo moon to be with me because they would be the people that would think about like some detail, like, oh, I wonder what the weather is going to be like, or I wonder what like the conditions are like, like planning things where it's like you don't think it's important, but then the day comes and everything's a shit show, and you're like, oh, the Virgo is right.
they
So
thought about
they
it.
come in handy sometimes.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
think like
even if
15.
it's not
Yeah,
needed.
right, right. You're super thankful for that because they've thought through all the minutia and all those mundane, not so exciting aspects of whatever you have to do, whatever job you have to do. They're really good at um, the planning and all the little the executing of all those little things. I think of this energy as like thinking about, instead of the expression thinking about the trees or the forest, this is the trees. This is the person that's like
Yeah.
understanding their world through the trees, as opposed to us with our Sag Moon. It's like understanding that we want to know the forest more, and then we can get into the trees, and so that's
So
kind of
so true. That's like what's the painting? Is that the painting for Virgo Moon is trees? I think that's a good one, because Trey is a Virgo Moon, and Trey sounds like tree, and he's a double Virgo, and that is true. He's always loved trees, so it's very tree energy Virgo, and it's
tree.
all about the roots and understanding the roots and the foundations. Even though Capricorn's more foundations, so yeah, definitely a good one. And yeah, feel good with that? Should we move to, you want to lead off the Virgo or the Libra?
Yeah, sure. So Libra Moon, air sign, cardinal air sign, right? So with cardinal, think initiation. So like Aries is the cardinal fire sign. Cancer is the water cardinal, and we've got the air cardinal is Libra. And so everybody thinks, oh, Libra's all nice, and they're very sweet and diplomatic, but there is a side of Libra that is about creating balance. And sometimes that takes some force, right? Or, some direction or initiation. And so I never want people to think about Libra as just this complete pushover. It can be, but in an effort to kind of, keep the scales balanced. But I think with Libra, there is an emotional need. If you have a Libra moon, that there is balance, and there is maybe a balanced
Yeah.
perspective. And it doesn't mean you're going to necessarily agree with everything, but I think you will tend to be fairly diplomatic as you weigh through and sift through the options. This is somebody who I think would prefer some sort of harmony or discourse. If we think of Libra, it's the part of the zodiac where you're considering the other person. And so I would say for somebody who has a Libra moon, they probably are all about partnering with other people. Like they would rather, Aries moon is like, I can do it by myself and that's okay. I don't care who that comes with me. But like Libra moon is like, no, I would rather collaborate with somebody else and buddy up with somebody else. Like I feel like this person, if they don't have a partner, like they almost feel like they're lost. They could,
Yeah.
because it's an
Yeah.
emotional need. And so they are all about the dance with a partner, like, and the romance around the partnering, and it, at least the exchange, because again, this is an air energy of the back and forth of talking about ideas and considering different points of view, and what do you think, and here's what I think, and what do you think, and so I think that is important. Libra is about, I would say, if this person doesn't feel like there is balance or there's justice in a situation, that could be really upsetting to them. This would be somebody who, in certain circumstances where there's stress, and they don't feel like there's equality going on, this could really kind of be upsetting for them, because they really do, I think, get a lot of security, and the moon is kind of around security, in that kind of balance, that fair way that things are handled. And let's be honest, life isn't always fair, and things aren't always fair, in love and war. And so when that doesn't happen, I think it can really upset the apple cart for somebody who has a Libra moon, and then they could get a little cantankerous, I think, from what I've seen, if to get back into balance, emotionally. So artistic too, like, this could be someone who's really, Libra is a sign of an artist. And so you could see that that's also a part of that, because it is all about, when I think of Libra, it's about proportionism or proportion, and like the fine ways of finding balance and taste, and all those things that come with a real attunement to measurements and proportion, and the right amount of this, the right amount of that. Maybe you're really even good as dancing or in the arts or things of that nature. So is, you know, kind of when I think of, I don't know a ton of Libra moons, but the ones and fluid, I think for the most part. I mean, they're really trying to move and find balance. And I don't see the Libra moon as something too stubborn unless it was a situation where there wasn't justice and equality in something. And then they could, you know, that then you really see that kind of that the hard side of Libra, where Libra can get really cold. And like with all the air signs, I think it's good to note that they can be cold, right? They can detach, and that can be a strength. And in certain situations where something isn't fair for a Libra, they will get very cold and very just intellectual. So
Yeah. Yeah, well said. It's interesting. It's funny. There's a guy I know who has he's a Libra Moon, Saturn in the 7th house. And I'm like, man, this guy is that's just fucked, because it's like Libra Moon wants a relationship more than any other sign. It's that inner environment of just like two people holding hands, all about, you know, relationships, harmoniousness, rules the 7th house of romantic relationships. So it wants that more than everything, right? And as some of you may know, Saturn in the 7th house pushes away relationships till after the Saturn return, usually, or later in life. So it's kind of interesting there.
wow.
But yeah, like very peacemaker energy, really good for negotiating, and all about finding balance within and without. So they will sometimes be the ones who will put other people other people first before they put themselves. And like you said about being a pushover, so it's all about they're all about finding balance within and without. So when the balance can't be found, like if someone else is unhappy, sometimes they'll be like, okay, I'm going to put my needs, I'm going to push my needs away just to make the other person happy, because it feels so uncomfortable for them to have that broken. So it's really important for them not to be people pleasers, to learn to subscribe to values, to kind of take from that Aries energy of just like going toward things and being a little bit selfish when they have to be.
I like where you're going. Yeah, with the opposite, that really can be helpful, right? The opposite energy of your moon, sometimes it can be good if you're showing that negative expression, the negative expression. Just like where I think of the Sag moon that I have, if I get too dogmatic or set in my ways or beliefs, then I need to open up a little bit and do the Gemini thing and kind of, you know, honor the diversity of perspective. So yeah, but that's a good point with the Libra moon. I think it can really put the needs of others before the shadow side of Libra, put the needs of others before its own, and to its detriment sometimes. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
So in terms of partners and relationships, I mean, the Libra energy, it also likes to talk and discuss ideas. It's an air sign like Gemini and Aquarius. So, you know, they do well with all kinds of partners, I think. It's kind of an interesting one. Like, I think Libra could work well with a lot because they are so relationship oriented. Maybe like, would Libra be a sign? I don't really know this, but would Libra be a sign, or Libra moon, that just like has tons of relationships with different types of zodiacs they don't really have? I mean, obviously they're more probably going to be with Gemini and Aquarius, and but would that be kind of how they are, do you think?
It's a good question, man. I think, yeah. So when I think of the Libra energy, I feel like, not that they're necessarily like promiscuous, but I feel like even though they're very accommodating, like the Libra energy, Libra sun, Libra moon, if you have other Libra placements, I think if you try to tie them down, they're going to get bored, because it's almost like with Aries, like Aries and Libra, you know, they're opposite signs. There's got to be a dance to things. Like Aries is more like the hunt, the adventure, something new. And I feel like Libra also needs that fresh dance. And that's why I think they're connected with romance so much, because there's a kind of dance that goes on. And so it's that play, that exchange. And so I feel like that would be very necessary for them. And if they don't have that in their relationship, they'd at least want it in their interactions with others, in their jobs. Maybe this could be the person's really like enjoys sales, but maybe, you know,
they're great businessmen.
Sure.
It's like the scales are also for business, for the market. So it's really good diplomats and businessmen for sure. Lawyers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Counselors, everything.
Yep. wherever they have to kind of converse and have an exchange or an intellectual exchange and think about things and weigh the pros and the cons. Like pros, whenever I think of Libra too, it's like pros and cons. And sometimes that can be frustrating because if you're thinking, oh, I want to get in a relationship with a Libra because they're going to be sweet and kind and pretty and all that kind of stuff, with it, which they might very well be. But they're also like, whenever I think of Libra, I think of like the word however, because they will be the person that's like, you come at them with an extreme opinion, they'll be like, in all fairness, they might say, or however, because they're never wanting one extreme to win out at the detriment of another. For them, that's it, just their mind works, I think, in a way where they're always thinking of things in proportion and equilibrium. And that could be a lesson in frustration if you're the type of person who you really want somebody to take your side. And that's just not usually the way that a Libra rolls. I mean, I think they're really good at negotiation because they can always have that consideration for other perspectives. So
yeah. And one last thing, I mean, it's just like, it's in romantic terms, it's like Gemini kind of, where they're just very, very social. So they might even like they're flirty too. And they might accidentally run into relationships where they're like, shit. And then they go into them and they're like, fuck, now I don't want to like not please this person. Like, but like, I never had the intention of coming in this relationship. And yeah, it can be very indecisive, emotionally indecisive. So it's really important for Libras to have values they can subscribe to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
Scorpio. So we're at 90
Scorpio
minutes.
Moon, right?
Yes. What just happened? 21. Okay. Yeah, Scorpio Moon. What about Scorpio Moon?
This one's a tricky placement, I feel. I feel like of all the moons, like this could be one of the toughest ones because and I'll give my opinion because being a Scorpio sun, I relate to some of the Scorpio stuff, but I relate more to, and this is another example just before we get into this. I have a Scorpio sun, but I have a Sag moon, and I feel it's just so much more like a Sag in some cases because it's just such a powerful part of who I am. The moon is. But I feel like Scorpio moons are almost like the Scorpio energy on steroids because for a couple of reasons. Right? You've probably seen this just in your experiences.
With men, it's so much hard. I feel like with men, it's ultra hard. Like in this society, to have a Scorpio moon.
Oh, yeah. Because
not to say it can never be successful, but it's just like at least women are able to express that stuff. But men, it's like you're not supposed to express all that stuff. But go ahead with what you're saying. I mean, don't interrupt.
Yeah. No. That I like where you're going with that because I feel like this is the part of all of us that is just the emotional chaos that is part of this. Like almost when I think of the Scorpio moon, I really think of the dark Scorpio energy that can be very transformative, but it is just heavy, right? I mean, there's a heaviness to it. And so I almost feel like those who have the Scorpio moon, they're walking through life with this intensity. They're cloaked in this. It's almost like they have a shadow, around them until they learn to work with it. But I feel like their emotional body is just everything is so intense. I feel like if you have a Scorpio moon, and I've had, friends that have Scorpio moons, they're kind of like, it kind of scared me at first, before I was able to realize that this is part of my emotional makeup. And with Scorpio, there can be that feeling of vindictiveness. And I think when that's tied to emotions that are volatile as it is, you just get that energy just can really, now, if you contain it, it just wreaks havoc on you on the inside. And so really there is, and Scorpio's connected with rage. And so there can be, if you don't have a good outlet for that, then you really can suffer. Other people could suffer from your emotional displays. I think really at its best, it makes for a very deep thinker, somebody who can, be a great therapist because they know the ins and outs of those emotional depths so innately, so intimately. But I think it can be a very dark, deep placement. And I feel like everyone who I've encountered, they really have to work through some emotional trauma and get to the other
Super
side.
spiky. They can be super spiky and like just like sometimes too much to be around. Like we're just like you're like, okay, like I could see why, like, you know, if someone's in a relationship with that person, like why they would, because they could be a great partner and they're very, you know, very loyal and all that. But it's like just as like a friend or a person to hang out with, they're not, a lot of times they're not the most chill moon sign. Put it that
No,
way.
well placed. Yeah, I feel like that too. This is, so if we think about Scorpio, Scorpio is confrontation. So when,
Yes.
right, a lot of people don't think about this, but I'm trying to frame it more and more. Scorpio is about directly confronting, and wherever that is in your chart, your limitations. Because when you break through your limitations, you're free and you're in your power. But if you have that as your kind of emotions, it means you're really breaking through a lot of that stuff. And so, I mean, the outburst could be really just volatile and confrontational. So I think of Scorpio Moon could be very confrontational, and in a way that could be uncomfortable for those who have, especially I think if you would have more of an air moon, you would just really be like, wait a second, can we have a little bit more discourse? And it's like, no, this intensity is coming out. And you have this as a Scorpio moon, a need. So again, the moon need for intensity. So you need to have
Yeah.
something that's intense. You're not going to go, you know, it's not lukewarm. It's one extreme or the other, and that's where the juice is for you. I think as a Scorpio, and especially as a Scorpio moon, you need to have juice. Otherwise, you don't feel like you're alive. And Scorpio is all about kind of like the fast track to evolution. And so I think in a lot of cases that comes out as, you know, I'm going to crash and burn and I don't care, because it's going to get me to the next level of the game. And there's a lot of bravery in that. But I do feel like it is a very volatile energy. And I don't mean to like completely crash the party here for the Scorpio moon, because I do feel on the positive side, this is the type of person, if I was going through a massive amount of trauma, I would want those positive aspects of a friend with a Scorpio moon to be present with me in my emotional pain and be able to create a space for me of safety. Because I do feel on the positive aspects of Scorpio, there is a protection, because Scorpio is all about trust, like really creating like an immense amount of trust, when there's a lot of crappy taboo stuff coming up that nobody else will talk about. And so I feel like this could be a fierce friend and a fierce partner. If you can,
Yeah.
if you can honor, you have respect for that type of a relationship, this is the person who will, you know, fight to the death for you. And you know, if that's what you want, then and you're willing to kind of match that or complement it, then I just feel like that would be. But I feel like the Scorpio moon is even more intense than a Scorpio sun. I feel like they
Yeah.
just feel it all, they internalize it all, and they're just they're just, because it's the emotions, they're living that raw Scorpio energy. So
Yeah.
and it's fixed. It's a fixed sign, so it's kind of can be very set in its ways, in its emotions. So a lot of intensity there, high octane. So
Yeah. Very intense. Like needs close, truthful relationships. Needs to be able to express themselves in relationships. And yeah, it's a difficult placement, but it doesn't mean it has to be. It can be very, very strong. It can sometimes be a little bit too much for people because they need to have people around them that they can really express their deepest emotions and deepest darkness and shadow with. So, in a relationships, they're going to need to have people that can handle that deep intimacy and deep intensity. And not everyone wants to go there all the time. Sometimes it can be less. You know, I'm not going to lie. Like sometimes it can be less fun because it's like so much about transforming on a deep level. So, all right, I want to move forward because I'm tired as shit. But we have Sag now, both of our moon sign. What can we say about this one?
We probably
two
say a
Sag
lot.
moons here.
Yeah,
but it's pretty obvious. It's like it's about traveling. We've already said a good amount about it in the early ones. Like it's about expanding. Like this is expansion. Think of like a energy, and very like anything is possible. Very optimistic inside. Very future oriented. Idealistic. Loves to learn. Loves to kind of learn about philosophy, but also I think of Sag Moon loves to. I mean, that's the part of me that really loves to party and be social, while the Pisces part is more like introverted. It's very social, very opinionated. At its worst, it can almost like be so intense about like what it deems to be the truth that it's like you have like telling other people unconsciously like you have to know, like not like you have to believe this, but like I know like when I was first learning about astrology and spirituality, I had this really deep, intense drive for everyone around me that I would meet or people I already knew to learn about it too, or to learn about different things I was learning about. And that'd be cool sometimes. But for people who weren't ready, it would just be very frustrating. The big lesson for me was like, you know, some people aren't there yet and need to get there on their own time.
Yeah. All you said, and just to add to that, like I feel like there's an emotional need with the Sag Moon to like bounce back from things, like not get too heavy into stuff, be able to, you know, have some variety, have, you know, be able to learn, like be able to learn some different things and explore some different things. And optimism is a big part of, you know, the emotional need. Like really, like I feel like I need to know that there's a sense of hope at the end of a dark tunnel. Even though there's a dark tunnel, I need to be able to be like, but this is what we're going for and we can make it. And this is what we got to focus on. And I find sometimes like when I'm too much like that and people aren't ready for that, they're like, it's annoying, you know, for them to, that optimism becomes just like, it almost is like salt in a wound if people are hurting. So I feel like, right?
So
like, I feel like,
we have to like hold it back sometimes, right? Or like we don't have to, but there is sometimes this feeling of like, am I going too far on like am I being too happy? Am I being too optimistic?
yeah,
Which you should never, it should never be a thought you have, but in this world it's like sometimes you have to be like that,
you
right?
do like it, because the focus is on the big picture and you understand that there's a bigger picture than the little stuff that's going on. And I think for me, that's the well, the problem can be with the Sag Moon is glossing over the details and wanting to just move on from the little stuff that weighs us down, and it wants to like take flight. And I feel like this energy is very buoyant and really an energy that doesn't want to get pinned down. Is the part I think too that like even though Pisces is connected with escape, I think Sagittarius maybe takes a close second, and that it will like want to flee the scene when getting.
Yes, my sun and my moon
Yeah,
sign.
yeah, they will both. So yeah, so if you don't hear from Jesse for a while, you can blame it on his sun and moon sign because it just needs to escape, right? Yeah. So I feel like I would rather not deal with a confrontation because it's just so, I don't know. I'm not, if I don't have fun, yeah, it sucks. And so, but the Sag Moon is the hopeful teacher. It's the one who I think, you know, Sag, you don't always hear this, but it's pretty intuitive as well,
Yes.
and connect, right, connected with the natural laws.
Open-minded too.
Super open-minded. It can get very excited about an idea or philosophy, and then it wants to convince the world, and in a way it means well. But it can get a little bit overly passionate, and then people are like, okay, let's, you know, I've heard enough from you. But I think it's because it really has found a system, like a pattern that that they've explored and they've learned. And then you know, whereas you said before Gemini is about little details and information, Sag is like, oh, you know, I'm looking at everything and I found a system that helps to make sense of all the details, whereas Gemini is almost kind of interested in keep going through all the details and maybe never coming up with a complete synthesis of all this. I feel like the Sag Moon has a need to have an overarching philosophy that
Yeah.
encompasses all the stuff. And then again, from that forest, you can make sense of all the trees. And for people who are really, you know, it's important for you to do detail work or be the details are important in the way in what you do. I think that can
Yeah.
be annoying because you know, there is a time and place to focus on the details, but Sag is the bigger picture, you know, exploring to the next thing. One other thing is like cultures, other cultures. I think
Yes.
people, you know, that's a huge way for a Sag moon or a Sag sun to connect and learn is by exploring other cultures, because in the other culture you almost unlock something that you didn't see before. It's almost like this really cool satisfaction with, oh, like I'm learning because I'm taking the culture I know and then I compare it against this other culture and then I find the differences and the similarities too. So it's the other culture aspect is just a fascinating piece where you find and you learn about yourself and you learn about the other
Yeah.
and you know, so anyway, yeah, Sag Moon.
With the yeah, with the other culture thing too, it's like I was just like I live in Romania. I've lived in like what 8 or 9 different cities, and I know 4 languages. Like it's just that kind of energy because it helps. Like by learning a new language, I expand. I understand a culture deeper, and it by understanding 2 different cultures, like you said, like I'm out of America now, right? I've been out of America for years, so it's like I can look at America now and understand things that I wouldn't be able to understand if I was living in America because I can see it from I have that perspective, and that's Sag is so much about perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's also huge in a relationship. It's huge on freedom. It needs space, right? It needs to be able to like go. It needs freedom. If you try to pin someone with a Sag moon down and say this is how you have to live your life, this is how you like it has to be. It's very non-traditional, even though it does like some traditional stuff like religion and whatever. Like it likes to kind of like be free. So it likes to have that in relationships as well.
Yeah, it's a fire sign, so you don't want to contain the fire too long. You know, that doesn't make for a good experience. So yeah, Sag Moon, we could talk forever, but
Exactly.
you know, we got other moons to get through.
Yes.
And so Capricorn Moon, should we plan that?
Yeah. 3
It
more.
Yeah, so Capricorn Moon, you know, you go from the fire sign Sag over to Capricorn, and it's Earth. So, and it's cardinal Earth. So again,
Tough one.
cardinal is, you know, yeah, this is a more serious moon placement. If you have a Capricorn Moon, like you probably have a kind of a deadpan humor, a little bit more of the cynical type, whereas the Sag Moon is kind of playful and he, you know, has that kind of playful, adventurous energy. I feel like the Capricorn Moon is kind of more of the serious adult type of energy. It's more contained, so you wouldn't be maybe as exuberant in your expression of emotions. In fact, you might not even have a clue what that person is thinking, because unless
Yeah.
you have a lot of earth too and you can relate to that. But I think that would be where it would be tricky if you have a maybe an earth moon and somebody else has a fire moon. You could really aggravate each other because one is wanting to be fairly expressive in expressing their emotions in this kind of fiery way, and the earth is kind of like Capricorn moon is wanting to contain, and Capricorn energy can be kind of a little bit more, you know, restrictive, right, in an effort to focus,
Yeah.
in an
Very.
effort to build. It has its place, but I feel it's a bit more sober in its ways of dealing with things. I feel like this moon placement, because Capricorn is the opposite sign of Cancer, and we said Cancer is the moon. I feel like this
Yeah.
could be one of those where this person kind of shrugs or pushes aside its emotional needs just to be kind of an
Repression.
adult. Yeah, and depression. You
Yep.
know, you can see that very melancholy,
Yeah.
depressive,
Heavy. It's a
heavy.
heavy depression that like you can be in the same house as someone that's depressed with a Cap Moon, and you feel the depression just by being in the house with them, even if you're not in the same
Mm.
room. And then you want to be like, hey, just snap out of it because they're so headstrong. They have that headstrong energy, but really they don't really know how. It's like it's very difficult. There's all these crystallized emotional patterns that need to be like it's a Saturn rock that need to be like undone somehow.
Yeah, I just think of like immovable, like almost just like it's just like a statue, and it's kind of heavy, and you just, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of tenacity though, like with Capricorn, they're steady, and so in the positive sense, I would feel like this is a person too, like much the same way that Cancer Moon can be a very good business person, like a Capricorn Moon can be a super good business person. I think a lot of CEOs have like a Sagittarius Sun and a Capricorn Moon, so they have kind of a fiery part of who they are, a go-getter, fire part, but then they have the
Mm.
stability and the sensibilities of the Earth. And with the Earth, with the Capricorn Moon, I think it gives you kind of like the ability to not be impulsive in really like hard situations. And so you're like the one who I would see that's kind of like the cool business executive that isn't going to lose your cool in a really tough
Yeah.
negotiation. Like so, um, is that Felice?
No, it's
Which
Esme,
one? Oh, it's my
the
hey,
baby.
hey there. So yeah, I feel like Capricorn Moon is I mean, I really feel like it's sometimes it's just it can be pretty tough. You know, you can be one of those where it's you know, you might not
Up on
express your
itself too.
tough on itself. Yeah, super tough, like super like you internalize that seriousness, right? Because it's like the Capricorn is a serious energy, and if you're not allowed to express like childlike emotions, then you
Oof.
probably, I don't know, it's got to be tricky. You probably feel like you're an adult when you enter into life, and that can be tough to manage. So and no wonder you might feel a little bit depressed. I feel like, you know, what do you think about romantic relationships, Jesse? Like a Capricorn Moon, what would that look like?
Well, they have like the energy of Cat Moon. It's like honestly, it could go in many different ways. They could go with the like they want someone who can be consistent because they're very. It's like they're emotional, but it's like hidden, kind of. It's like at a very deep level, and it can be very repressed. And I feel like they're very guarded. So like one, you know, they're gonna want a partner. It's like what you think about wants and needs. Well, okay, maybe they'd be better off with someone who can open up that fiery or that watery parts of them and give them some life, give them some emotion, give them some, you know, I'm not saying they don't have any of those. And some Cap Moons I know are the most like full of life people and just going against so much what we're saying, which is interesting. But a lot of them have like Neptune conjuncted or something
Mhm.
like that. Or maybe other parts of their chart. And this ends up being like a balancing part, right? So you always have to get a birth chart rating or understand your own chart to know how this works. But yeah, I love like, you know, they go a lot with Taurus because in Virgo, because they can really rely on them and it's that earth energy. But yeah, maybe they could do well with going with some risks and going with someone that might open them up. But then at the same time, it's like, is that really going to work? Because they might have such a heavy energy. Like I know for me, if I was ever with someone, you know, with a Cat Moon who is like in that lower energy of Cat Moon, there's no way it would work because that person it would be so somber and like that it can be very flow killing the energy at
Mm.
times. So, but with that said, like the good part of of Cat Moon evolved is like it can just be very grounding and like kind of like what you're saying, like able to really like manage its own life and have long-term, like be very committed and want to create relationships where they build the foundation that's super solid. They're very serious about their relationships, especially if their Venus is in Capricorn.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Very grounded. Like highest expression, this can be a very solid person that you feel, and maybe it's not a gushy type of expression of emotions, but like, at the end of the day that this relationship is going to stand the test of time, and that's satisfying in its own way, right? If you can have an appreciation for that. So
Definitely.
cool.
All right. So now two more left. I'm tired, but we can do it. It's 2 a.m. here. Aquarius Moon. So Aquarius Moon is a very interesting moon sign. They are very, very humanitarian. They really want to help the world, but sometimes they can be kind of more trusting of intellect than their own emotions. And sometimes they can be a little bit aloof from emotions, right? Or distrust them, or think of them as irrational, unpredictable, and be more involved with their mind. So yeah, it's interesting because in one area it's really, really humanitarian, and you'd think it'd be very, very like the same way emotional relationships, but it can be very detached in relationships. My cat is messing with my TV. But yeah, very progressive, liberal, and not in this political party, just in the sense of like wanting to help others and whatnot, and giving people freedom. And yeah, they have that fixed sign energy, so they have lots of focus, perseverance, endurance, and they can be very stubborn. They have an idea, they kind of stick it, and they stick with it, and they kind of it's tough, with any of the fixed ones to really. They can be very stubborn. The fixed signs of Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, and Taurus can be some of the stubborn signs. And yeah, they have lots very objective, and they can struggle at times to understand other people who are more emotionally and instinctively driven, like the water and fire people. And it doesn't mean they're not emotional, but they are the ultimate people, kind of what you're saying with Capricorn. They can like be in the midst of the war and make the really like logical decision. That's why they can be very good leaders, is because they're not emotionally led. But yeah, they can really, in relationships, they just love, they can be the people that have like distance relationships, like they need space, kind of like Sagittarius. And yeah, like that, it's just an interesting moon sign, very collective orientation. They really very objective, look at things from a zoomed out point of view. And yeah, just a need for freedom, best in relationships with others who understand that and give them space and don't judge them like, oh, you're never giving me enough attention. And the inner environment, yeah, they can also, because it's ruled by Uranus, they can be very sometimes emotionally erratic, and also move their place of where they live a lot too. I'll be right back if I move my cat.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah, so I would say on top of that probably is the detachment. Like there is a part of the Aquarius archetype that is about detaching and really honoring the individual. And so I feel like with Aquarius and Aquarius Moon, sometimes they can even detach from the emotional body. So I feel like just Aquarius in general can, because it's such a mental energy, and that's a superpower, but it can detach from the physical body. And I've talked to Aquarius moons before where they're like, they can be so intellectual, so in their head, so detached that they don't realize they're going through an emotion or their body isn't going through something, and then like they could be really sad about something, but then they feel it a couple days later, because they're so
So true.
intellectual about what's going on. And so I think that is a thing with Aquarius. It is a superpower. It does allow them to be very detached, logical, progressive, but also it's something where they could and very fixed. Now they can get into where they lock horns with people, because this is also a very highly principled sign, right? The Aquarius is all about tolerance and humanitarian principles, but because it is fixed, you might get those fixed properties like your fixed signs, where once they're set on something, they're set on it, and that can happen with emotions too. But I like what you said, freedom seeking, a lot like Sagittarius needs that space. It might be one of those in romantic relationships as well, where you have more of an intellectual rapport with this person, and it's less of a
Exactly.
touchy feely, like physical hands-on. I feel like this person would be much more like, you would be staying up till all hours of the night having intellectual discussions about humanity and what's going to happen in the world and what's, you know, not going right in the environment, what could be going right, things like that. And you know, they're able to see kind of the bigger picture in that way. Yeah, but it could be a little cooler. Like if you're looking for somebody, or if you have a moon that needs more of that emotional, like if you have a water moon, I feel like it could be really tricky to partner with someone who has especially an Aquarius moon, because I feel like when you have the moon and Aquarius together, it's almost like an detachment from emotions. And so, you know, I've even heard Aquarius moons, like they even have sometimes problems connecting with family because there's like, I don't want to connect with that emotional kind of what's considered home, because I do want to stand out. I want to be different. So that's what I've seen.
Yeah. Also, they can be the ultimate people who get in a relationship with someone and like don't care about looks, like not all the time, but like it's so much about the mind, right? Especially, yeah, it's very interesting in that sense. And it's just it's one of those moon signs that's kind of hard to pin down, honestly. And sometimes, yeah, there can be such an innate sense of uncomfortableness about getting close that they can almost make themselves out to be special just because of how different they are, and then reject other people on that basis. So yeah, it can be kind of difficult, but also kind of like a super strength because they don't have to feel emotions, so they can just like, you know, like not get hurt as much and whatnot. So
right, yeah.
And then like you said, they'll just feel something that happened like 2 years ago in 2 months. Aquarius energy is very hard to pin down and can be very elusive.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the superpower. It can be a little bit standoffish, but that allows for other good things. So yeah. Well, I guess we are to the last but not least, and Jesse's hanging in these last few moments so we can bring it home in Pisces, right?
Yep. So here's a Pisces rising. Pisces moon. Pisces moon. Wow, it's like the mystic or the drug addict. It's like not necessarily always that direction, but so many Pisces moon you meet, they have, you know, they grow up and there's just like it's so much imagination, so much intuition, so much of that water, otherworldly Neptunian energy. It's like that space. Oh my God, stop it. My cat is so annoying sometimes. Just knock down something. But yeah, so the Pisces moon, super compassionate, creative, imaginative, romantic, all that, but sometimes it's too much. It's like, look at Kanye West. That's a perfect example of a Pisces moon, but he's a Gemini sun. You know, it can be very, so like there can be like this like very poetic view, like ability to see life at a certain view. But like we said about Cancer moon earlier, they take in everything, all that energy, all the negative energy, whatever, they take it in. But Pisces, unlike Cancer, Pisces can have that real tendency to escape it. And the better escape is through music, through art, through whatever it is, dance, these things connected to Pisces, spirituality. But the lower one is like drugs, substances, kind of daydreaming, not being willing to like actually face the reality. So yeah, super strong imagination and really intense, intuition and feelings, and very creative, highly intuitive. It's very mysterious too. And yeah, like the big thing with Pisces is they really need to see things how they really are. Especially in love and relationships, they might have to go through many lessons, kind of like Cancer, like we were saying, right? Where they might have a tendency to enter relationships with these rose-colored glasses, like, oh, this person's so amazing because they whatever, because they see the potential, which is such a beautiful thing to be able to see someone's higher potential. But sometimes they need to take something from the Virgo or the Capricorn page and actually like see things for how they really are, right?
Right. Yeah, it's so connected sometimes, like Pisces with the divine, that it kind of can gloss over, and it doesn't mean to in a bad way, but gloss over all the reality things that go on, and that can kind of in a way get it into trouble if it's not discerning with specifics. And so it really is helpful to, I think, with because there's that sensitivity, especially when we're talking about the moon. It's almost like people I know, it's so interesting. People I know that have this Pisces moon, they could have a sun in another sign, or Gemini or Sagittarius, for example. But it's like almost in the background, there's this like dreamy thing that's going on. And it's kind of cute.
Yeah, this openness.
Openness. It's kind of cute to behold, because like you could see their sun playing out, but then all of a sudden there's these moments that take over, and it's like they've entered the dreamscape, and you're like, oh,
The dreamer,
the
yeah.
dreamer. I see. You're like, I see it going, and it's a really nice vibe, because I find this is the person, because I say as well with the moon, Jesse, that it's almost the way that we can feed other people, because like moon is almost like mother, and how we
Yeah,
feel
that's
nourished
nice.
and how we nourish others. But I feel like these are the people that if I'm down and out on my luck, like they can hold a space for me that's just very pure, non-judgmental. Their presence can be very powerful, and they create just a very, what is it? I want to say unconditional love. Like when I think
Yeah,
of Pisces at its best, it's holding you in uh, it's holding you in a place of non-judgment. And I really do feel like these people, now it can be it can be hard if like there's no discernment. So if you have a Pisces moon, you could get swept up in that ecstasy of just, I don't know where the boundaries are of things, and I don't know what's coming and going, and that's kind of the flow of it all. But in the same sense, you want to realize that those magical moments are a beautiful part of who you are. They can also be confusing though, because with Pisces, I think it's hard to tell what direction, the directionalism of life. And
yeah,
that's, and so the practical things can be kind of tricky, but really at the end of the day, the energy I feel from that is like the one of a loving animal who
yeah,
just beholds you with the energy of the divine, and it's without judgment. Whereas Virgo is more discerning, and it's saying this is good, this is bad, get rid of this, keep this. Pisces is like, no, we just, it's all here, and there's no polarity of sorts. And that's, I mean, that's kind of really, I think, how the divine works, but it can be kind of tricky to manage. I think when I think of Pisces moon too, more so than sun in Pisces, is just super impressionable. Like it can just
yeah,
be swept away in these moments. And but because of that, is an amazing artist probably, because
yeah,
you can take in all that stuff and you can channel it into music, like painting. Like I feel like this is very Pisces vibe here. This little kind of thing
yeah.
here with the kind of
Very
the
color, yeah.
blues, the colors, and you can just really you get touched by all these things that maybe not everybody else sees or
Mhm.
experiences. And because of that, you can really be overcome with sensations, or experiences that border on, or they are mystical and otherworldly. And so you just have to,
Yes.
I think, find a way where you don't get lost in other people's stuff, and you find a way to not get overwhelmed with, because this is emotion, right? This is a moon. So it would be very easy for you to get overwhelmed. Like I would think of this too, like in the pandemic with all the stuff that's going on. If you're a Pisces moon, you have to be very discriminating against like what news you watch or who you're around,
Yes.
because you could pick up on all the crap, and then you're just like you're making that other person's or reality your own. So you just want to be,
Hmm.
you want to, you want to be able to, in a good way, have the on and off switch of, or escape, like you said, where you can say, okay, I'm out, I'm out of here. And then you
Yeah.
detach from the, you detach from the situation, And then if you have to go into a situation where you can completely be absorbed in a matter or a medium of art or something like that, like turn it on, like turn on that juice, and then you can really be fully immersed with that, whatever that is that you're engaged with. And that's, I think, where you get the most beautiful art, you know, the most incredible artists, musicians, you know, therapists even, because, or actors even, right? Because you can just be so
Yeah.
immersed in a role or so immersed in a mood, and then you just become that, and it's pretty incredible. So what's your take
Yeah.
on the Pisces moon?
I mean, you said it well. I would just add, like, also very big on being of service. That's really, really great. 12th house energy, you know, being of service, giving back, unconditional love. Also, women typically have a lot easier time in today's society to express this very sensitive energy, and men can sometimes kind of get lost in it. Also, they can really let people lead them too much. Kind of, you were saying about that too. So it's important for them to take charge of their own life and as much as they can, and maybe to have partners. You know, of course, there's the whole rest of the chart, but just Pisces in general can benefit from Virgo energy. If it's a type of Pisces moon or Pisces person who's too off track, too dreamy, it could benefit from someone that they can, one, that's why, you know, Virgo could be good, because one that's so loyal they can count on it. Virgo gets a lot from Pisces. But like also they can give them order and yeah, order, and they can rely on it, they can really trust, and that won't deceive them.
Absolutely. Yeah, because at the heart of, I think, this energy is like really someone who is willing to sacrifice and give, and give purely from a very pure place. And you know, they just have to be mindful that sometimes there are people that aren't, you know, really good people. And so you need to be mindful of that, and know when it's the right time to be of service. But what I love about this energy too is it's always forgiving. Like, I would feel like this is the type of person that's pretty forgiving of your actions. They'll always, and so to tie this into the new moon and that we have in Pisces
Yeah.
here, I feel like it's the end of the zodiac. It's the release. So Pisces is all about,
Yes.
okay, just release it, let it go, and let it go
Higher
again.
spirituality too.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
higher spirituality and mysticism, all that stuff, the occult, astrology. Astrology is very like Aquarius, Pisces energy, maybe more Aquarius, but
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, the Pisces is just very much kind of the mystical, the beyond, the non-physical, the you know, you get these hunches that are probably right on, and you can't even explain it. Like, you can't even put into words.
Trust. Yeah, learning to trust your own intuition is huge for Pisces moon, and not think it's just some stupid thought, because you're usually right about a lot of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, even if you can't explain it, just try to honor those things that you get hits on, and you know, those downloads, and you know, don't let them freak you out, because you're probably very more impressionable than any other moon sign. But it can be your superpower, but you want to be discerning about when you tap into that or when you kind of tap out of it. So cool, man. Wow. The moon
Sweet. Wow.
marathon. So
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool. I guess, yeah, it's been a pleasure. Should I end the recording now? Well, thanks, people. And we should say, you know, where to find Dave. I mean, you guys know my Instagram, wherever I'm posting on YouTube. Yeah, where
you can find me at Dave_Haskins on Instagram. So just check me out if you want a reading, or you know, just want to reach out with, you know, some different questions about astrology. You know, it's huge. Learn more about your you know, your moon sign or other placements in your chart, like you said, Jesse. It's kind of picking apart piece by piece all those other things that make up all of who you are, not just a single part. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I'll be tagging Dave to wherever I post this. And yeah, do you have any specials going on? I know you did before. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
still doing any type of birth chart special.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. So if what I've been doing is any new followers, I've been doing like 30% off. And so I really, for me, it's just kind of getting out there. I launched my business more publicly, my practice in the summer. So, reach out to me. I'm giving 30% off. If you're in a place where you're struggling and I'm willing to work on a sliding scale. For me, this is not about the money or the profit. It really is a work from my heart. And so I would, prefer to connect with more people, and as time allows. So, definitely check me out, check out my stuff on Instagram. And if it resonates with you, I'd love to connect with you, do a reading for you of sorts. So.
And you guys know where to find me. All my website stuff is in the bio of my Instagram or jesseannisonastrology.com. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
You guys.